Hello, my beauties. I hope you're having a great day so far. So this is a little mini masterclass all about lip liner and lip combos and how to kind of mix and match and create your own best lip combo and just like best practices and whatnot. Because I think it can definitely be something that's intimidating, but I do believe that it is something that can really make or break your makeup. And if you're struggling, I'm going to teach you some do's and don'ts, if you will. All right, sorry, I'm just trying to find this pencil that I thought I had, or sorry, not pencil, brush I thought I had on me. Here it is. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about it. Saint came out with some new pencils. I have mine in like these little drawers that are on my vanity, so that it's easy for me to kind of grab. So there's the gelatos, which are like these gloss sticks, and then there are the pencils, which there's silk pencils that are more like lip linery shades, so more like your browns and more neutral cool tones and stuff like that. Well, then you have the satins that are more like your classic traditional lip liner shades, so more of the like warmer shades, reds, plums, all of that stuff. And I want to also like share, hold on, I clearly am not as prepared as I thought I was going to be playing with like the lip and cheeks and just other lip products, because it's not just the gelatos that you can do lip combos with. You can do it with anything. So one of the first things is you always want to make sure that your lips are nice and prepped. I keep it really simple, and depending on like what I'm doing, so like if I'm doing a more intense lip or something like that, I most likely will use the balm versus the Saint lip balm. And the reason why is because this is a lot more hydrating. It's a little thicker, so it will wear down your lip color. While this is really, really thin and lightweight, so I find that it kind of dries down and just leaves your lips feeling hydrated. My lips are a little tiny bit crusty because I need to drink some water. And I also have like some hormone things going on right now. I don't know if it's from the iron therapy that I'm doing or just a mix of everything, but I can always tell because like around my nose gets really itchy and red, and that's always a sign of like hormonal things. It's a fun time to be alive. Anyways, okay, so let's get right into it. So one of the first things is making sure that when it comes to any lip color, what I love about lip liner is that lip liner can really transform any lip color, and you want to use it more like to define the lips. Lip liner was originally made to help your lipstick not bleed outside of the lip line. The formula of lip liners were more waxier. I still find that they are still kind of waxier, but I feel like they aren't as waxy as they used to be before. And they're a lot creamier and easier to glide on because makeup has come such a long way. And you can definitely use different products. Like the thing with makeup in general is makeup is a very versatile thing. And I think this is where we tend to box ourselves in, which is what I love about the way that Saint is marketing the new pencils, is that when you label something as a product, you have a harder time, especially if you're newer to makeup or like, you know, like a rule follower or something like that. If something is called eyeliner, you're only going to use it as eyeliner. Like, it's not your first instinct to try it as something else. But for me as a makeup artist, I know that just because something is called an eyeliner doesn't mean that I only use it as eyeliner. I can use it for whatever my little heart desires, because it's not just like, it's meant to work best around the eyes, but our skin on our face is mostly the same. So you can use it wherever you want. So just because something is marketed as something doesn't mean that you can only use it that way. You can definitely use things in different ways. Obviously, when things are meant to, or like made as like, for example, lip and cheek, that is formulated a little bit different than a traditional lipstick. Like a lipstick might be a little bit waxier or thicker, while a lip and cheek might be a little thinner. And it's gonna work as a cream blush and a lip color. So I just want you to kind of think outside the box when it comes to creating lip combos and just the different products that you use for your lip combos and stuff like that, or your lip products. and just in makeup in general. But then when it comes to actually picking the color or the product that you're going to use for your lip liner, there's a bunch of things that you want to factor in. So the first thing is you want to factor in the color or your natural skin tone, like your undertone. Are you more like, do warmer tones usually work better on you, or do cooler tones usually work better on you? And you'll kind of know, because like if you put on like a cool lip liner and it feels really, really great or washing you out, or if you put on like a more orangey or red lip liner and it pulls really, really warm, then that usually means that those colors don't work for your skin tone. Versus if you have like a warm undertone and you put on a warmer lip liner, for example, like MAC Spice is a very warm lip liner. And if you put that on and it just kind of blends into your skin and looks really good, that usually means that you have a warmer undertone. Versus someone like me, I have a cool neutral undertone. So when I put on MAC Spice, it turns really orange. So it just doesn't complement me. I look best in more neutral or cooler. Not too cool though. If I go really, really cool, it will look really grayed out on me. And I also want to keep in mind my natural lip coloring too. I think that's another thing, natural skin tone and natural lip coloring. So like my lip, have you noticed I have two different lip colors? My top lip is a little darker than my bottom lip. This is a very common thing with women of color. It's just a thing. There's not really a reason why. It just is the way that it is. That either you'll have like discoloration, if you will, like darkness around the lip. We just have a lot more melanin in our skin tone. So this is just melanin showing through in the lip. And it's one of those things that you want to kind of like, I have learned how to embrace it. And I've learned, okay, I need to make sure that whatever lip color I'm using, because my bottom lip is lighter than my top, my bottom lip is also a lot more pinky red than my top. So I want to make sure whatever color I'm using looks good on my top and on my bottom. There's a lot of times where I put a lip liner on my bottom lip and it looks great, but then the moment I put it on my top lip, it turns really orange. So you want to keep those things in mind too. So for me, I know because of the fact that my lip is dark, I'm going to use darker lip liners. I'm not going to use light lip liners because it's not going to flatter my lips, and it's also not going to go with my top lip. Another thing you want to keep in mind too is like, do you have more rosier lips, or do you have more like purpley lips, like more plummy lips? Do you lack color in your lips? Those are all things that you want to keep in mind when you're choosing your lip liner shade, because you want to make sure that you're not using something that is going to wash you out. Today's day and age, I find that we use lip liner more to contour our lip with and like create more of a shape and kind of define the lips more. But then you can use different colors to, like, again, change the color of your lip color, or just transform your makeup, which is what makes it a lot of fun. And I recommend everybody have like a brown lip liner, because this is something that you can use with any other lip color, lip liner in general, to add depth to a color, because brown is always going to deepen things up. And it is something that you can use more as a contour type of color. And then the way that you apply it, of course, is key too. So we're gonna get into all of those things. And I'm gonna start with a really, really great example. So there's a couple of the Silk pencils. This is a shade called Pepper. So it is a really pretty color. I like it as a contour, I like it as an eyeshadow, but as a lip liner on its own, you can see it's kind of like this cool tone brown. So there is like a little tiny bit of warmth. It's not super duper like gray, but it's light. And like if I compared that to my top lip, it is a lot lighter than my top lip. So when I apply it onto my top lip, you're gonna see that it really doesn't do much for me, and it's almost turning ashy because it's lighter than my top lip. So this is a color that on my bottom lip, it actually looks pretty decent, but you can tell the difference between the two sides. So if I put this on with a lip color, this is something else that you want to keep in mind too. If you're using like a warmer lip color and you go in with something like that's too cool or too dark, it can actually turn it more purpley. So you want to be careful with things like that when it comes to like the paler nudes and stuff for your lip color. Let me grab a little bit of my handy dandy toilet paper. So hopefully that's making sense of like choosing like this. People would think this is gonna be a great one because they don't want something too dark. But if your lips, your natural lips are darker, this isn't gonna work. Now, someone who might have like lighter skin tone or even like a paler lip might like this for a very subtle, natural like lip liner. But again, keep in mind that it does have a lot of coolness to it, so it will transform whatever you put on as a cool tone. I like this more for like contouring underneath with another lip liner shade. So that's what I'll use that one for. Then we have like a shade like Toffee. So this shade I actually thought was gonna be warmer than what it was based off of like the little cap. But when I put it on my lips, this actually has quite a bit of depth to it. And I can again mix it with something like Pepper to kind of add even more coolness if this is starting to pull a little too warm. So when I apply this on my lip, sorry, I was rolling it up. When I apply this on my lip, you're gonna see, sorry, I'm doing a terrible job. And I'll talk about application in a second. But you're gonna see like how on the bottom lip, you see how it looks like darker? While on the top lip, it kind of pulls a little tiny bit, almost orange right here. Like it looks like there's an orange circle. And it's because this is lighter and warmer than my top lip. So I keep that in mind. And I'll like go in with something like Pepper to kind of neutralize that. Because usually a cool tone and a warm tone together will make more of a neutral color. And you see how now that looks less orange. So that's something, a fun little trick that I like to do is like kind of mixing a cooler toned lip liner with a warmer tone to create more of a neutral tone if your lip liner is pulling really, really orange. So these are more like little tips and tricks on making colors work for you. So I always recommend if lip liners tend to pull really orange on you, that you have something cool like Pepper that you can mix in and kind of warm it down, or sorry, neutralize it. Same thing with like if lip liners tend to pull really gray or purple on you, I would recommend getting a warmer lip liner like Toffee. That's going to help to add warmth back into your lip color and kind of help to neutralize it so that it's not looking too ashy on you. And then you also want to keep in mind too, like things being too warm or too red, stuff like that. Like this is a shade called Toasted. So on me personally, I don't really prefer a color like this. On the bottom lip, it looks great. But again, on my top lip, this is gonna pull really warm and you're gonna see that. So this is where I would go in with that like Pepper shade. So you see how on the bottom, it looks nice and red, but on the top, it's almost pulling a little orange because there is some warmth to this. So that's where I would use a shade like Pepper. So that's just like some examples of like different things that you can do to kind of help fix your lip liners. Now I just, again, love a good brown lip liner. This is the shade called Brownie. And I can actually go in with a little bit of Brownie. This is gonna help to deepen it and also tone it down a little tiny bit so that it matches more of my bottom lip. So that's a fun little trick that I do a lot whenever on my top lip, because my top lip is so much darker, I'll use like a brown lip liner on top to add that depth. That's gonna help to kind of contrast against the depth of my top lip, and that's gonna help it to look more uniform all the way across. So if there's like a lip liner shade, I'm gonna add a little tiny bit to the bottom, not too much. So there's like a lip liner shade that I really like how it looks on my bottom lip, and I wish it looked like that on my top lip. Because my top lip is darker than my bottom lip, I go in with a brown, and that helps add that depth that I need so that it doesn't really change the color too much, but makes it look more like the like what it looks like on my bottom lip, which is what I'd want it to look like. So if you're someone who maybe you are someone who has darker lips, my recommendation is having a brown lip liner to help to add that depth so that it doesn't look super red, so that it doesn't look super warm, so it doesn't look super pale. It's gonna help to add that depth and contrast better, so it's going to make it pop more against your darker natural lip coloring. All right, so now that we've kind of gone over a couple of troubleshooting do's and don'ts, hopefully that all makes sense. I'm gonna go in. Okay, let me add some lip balm, or just the balm, regular balm, because again, my lips are crusty dusty. All right, let's talk about creating lip combos. So when it comes to creating lip combos, again, you can't go wrong with a brown. So kind of think about everything that we talked about so far. Something that is warmer is gonna add warmth to your lip combo. I personally, my general rule of thumb is I'm always gonna pair warmer lip liners with warmer lipsticks, cooler lip liners with cooler lipsticks. Brown is always going to be pretty universal, but brown is going to always add depth and deepen up any lip color. So you want to keep those things in mind whenever you're creating certain lip combos. So for example, there's a shade here called Coco Merlot. This is a really purpley, cool toned color. Now, if I can totally go in with something like Toffee, and use that like as a combo. And what this is going to do is going to warm up the purpliness in this and make it less purple, so it's not going to pull quite as cool. Versus if I went in with like Pepper, this is going to bring out more of that purple. And on me personally, because I already have that darkness on my lip, I don't really like things that are too cool because it makes my lips look more ashy, which for my skin tone tends to make me look kind of grayed out or washed out. So I like to actually add a little bit of that warmth. As we get older, we lose a lot of color and we lose a lot of that saturation. And saturation is usually warmth in our skin. So when we're losing that warmth, it's making us look kind of washed out. So adding a little bit of warmth is gonna help to intensify, or not to intensify, to like make you look a little bit more full of life. Like for me, my bottom lip, like I mentioned, again, has a lot more warmth to it. It's a little more red. So I want my lips to look more like that. If I go in with something super cool toned like Pepper with Coco Merlot, it's gonna make it look very, very pale and washed out. Another thing too, which I'll share this afterwards, sorry, my nose is itching over there, is how we kind of pair up our lips with the rest of our like makeup, like our eyes and stuff, which we'll talk about that at the end. So I'm gonna show you real quick. We're gonna do a quick little example so that you can see the difference between like using a cool tone with a cool tone lip color versus a warm tone lip liner with a cool tone lip liner, or sorry, with a cool tone lip color. So this is Pepper. And on the other side, I'm gonna do Toffee that I clearly broke. Couldn't tell you when I broke it, probably yesterday. And even on the lips, you can see the difference between the two sides, how this is looking kind of paler. And again, it's just really bringing out the depth of my lip. So I personally don't like to use a cool tone on my already cool tone lip. Okay, so this is gonna be Pepper with Coco Merlot. So that's that more purpley based lip gelato versus Toffee and Coco Merlot. So you see the difference? You see how here it just looks a little bit more full of life. It's giving me some of that warmth that my lip is missing, and kind of give me a youthful pout, versus here it's looking really, really washed out. It's looking very pale. It's not really popping on my skin. So for me personally, because I have cooler lips, I don't like to use cooler lip liners because it's just gonna emphasize that even more and deepen it up even more and just make me look really, really washed out. I like to do something a little bit warmer that just adds a little bit more color to my lip and a little bit more life. And again, if I am going to use, like for on my top lip here, where it's looking a little bit orange, that's where I could go in with pepper and kind of help to neutralize that. So I'll show you what that looks like. So you see how now that's not looking quite as orange, and it's just looking a little bit more defined. That's why I like to use that pepper shade more as like a contour to kind of help to add that natural shadowing, because contouring is usually cooler, so it's more of that natural shadowing. All right. Okay, so then when it comes to like creating other lip combos, again, I always like to go, like, I know that if I go dark, that I'm going to add depth to it. So I usually like to stay in the same color family for the most part. So if I'm using something that's more berry tone, this is Mulberry. Such a gorgeous shade. You see how Mulberry kind of pulls a little tiny bit red there? That's where I can go in with that brown pepper, sorry, cocoa. Brownie, this is Brownie. Apply that on top, and that helps to neutralize the redness so that it matches more with the bottom lip. Okay. All right, so with this shade here, now this is, again, kind of like a preference thing. So I find that if you have like a warmer lip, doing something like a cooler tone like Coco Merlot, that's a very mauvey purpley color, will work really, really great with this lip liner. For me personally, I've tried it. This is a little, because of the fact that this lip liner is very warm, this kind of starts pulling more of the purple out of the lip liner, and like even like the purple that's on my top lip, which is why I like to pair this more, sorry, I said warm. This is more like I would say it's more like a neutrally lip liner color. I wouldn't say that it's super duper warm. But anyways, so I like to pair Coco Merlot because again of that purpleness in it that I have in my lip. I don't want to emphasize more of that. So I personally don't really prefer to go in with like a purplier lip color that's going to make my lips look darker, because that's what purple will do. So there's a shade called Strawberry that's a little bit warmer, and you can kind of see it in the lid here. So I would do Strawberry. That has a little tiny bit of warmth to it. And I like to dab on the gelatos for the most part, because it's helping me to have a lot more control. And what this is gonna do is it's going to pull out any warmth that's in that lip liner so that it adds more of that warmer color to my skin that helps to kind of give me more of a youthful glow. Because again, I already have like this cooler neutral undertone and I have purpley lips. So if I go too purple, it's going to kind of wash me out, which I'll show you what that looks like. I should have done one side. Okay, so this is when I do Coco Merlot. And again, everyone's gonna be different. So I find that if you have a warmer undertone, you're not going to be pulling any extra purple from your lip. So this will turn more of a mauve color. So this is Coco Merlot. Now it might be a little harder to tell how here it's looking like a little washed out. It's not looking quite as warm or vibrant. It's kind of toning me down, washing me out, versus this side here that has a little bit more warmth. So it just works better on my skin tone. So I think of color theory. Again, a warmer color is going to almost neutralize a cooler color. So since my lips are cool, and if I use a warmer shade, not too warm, just like a little bit warmer, it's gonna help to neutralize the darkness in my lips, so it's going to make it pop a little bit more. So this is more so a trick that I do on like darker lips, darker skin tones that usually tend to have a lot more of that darkness on their lips. Now, when it comes to brown lip liners, you want to be very careful when you have a lighter skin tone, or even just in general, that you don't apply too much, which it can be really easy to get very carried away, especially if you're trying to fix things and whatnot. So my lip liner, if you watch my lip liner video, I'm not going to go too in depth about it, but I always overfill the bottom and the top. And when I'm doing this top right here, excuse me, so I'm going from this tip to this tip, and I'm making sure, because of this double lip line, we're basically going at the top of the upper lip line, if you can see that. So sometimes there'll be a little gap in between here. So I make sure that that upper lip line is connecting into my bottom lip line, my bottom lip, if that makes sense. Because not you'll have a gap, and that's what makes it look crazy. And then we're gonna follow the natural lip line on the edges. So I'm being very light-handed with this brown lip liner. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually take the etch brush and just use that to soften up my lip line. This is something when you're using like darker browns that you wanna add depth to your look, but you don't want it to be too intense or look like very harsh. That you wanna always do is just kind of soften up that lip line, blend everything out so that it's looking a little bit more subtle, and it's just defining the lips versus making it look like 90s lips. Now, if that's the vibe you're going for, you do you, boo-boo. But if you want something more natural, and that's what I love about these satin formulas, is that they are so buttery, so it's easy for me to like blend everything. So see how that looks a lot softer, more diffused, but it's still giving me nice definition. And then I can go back over like in this area here and just define it a little bit more. I'm being very light-handed with this. And this is a lip liner that I would use with literally any lip color. It's just gonna add a little bit of a natural contour to the lips, and I don't bring it out too much on my actual lip itself, because if I did that, it's gonna deepen up my lips. So when I put any lip color on top, it's gonna deepen up the whole lip. And all I'm really trying to do is just define my lip line a little bit more and define my lips so that they look more juicier, look more plump, and then I can go in with any lip color. So I'm gonna go in with Sugar Plum right here. And again, I like to tap. And this is a great tip to make any lip color kind of work for you. So on its own, I do like Sugar Plum a lot. It's actually really, really pretty, but she can be really intense. So this kind of helps to tone it down just a little tiny bit while still keeping that nice lip definition. It's not like super crazy harsh, but my lips are still nice and defined. And again, you can go in with like a contour shade if you want a little bit more definition, but you want it to be soft. Pepper's a really great one for that. And I'm just gonna go right above the top lip, or right below the bottom lip. And I only define those two areas because that's all you really need. And you see how that's just looking nice and defined, but still looking really nice and natural. Now you can kick this up a step and you can make that lip liner a lot more defined and harsher, but it is going to give you a different vibe for your look. So I'll show you that. I'm going to actually show you it with one of the different formulas called the Silk Pencils that are a little bit more long wearing. My poor little lips. I say mini masterclass and here we are 30 minutes later, but we're wrapping up. So this is the Silk pencil. I like to draw it and kind of smudge it so that it's not too harsh. This is in the shade called Cinnamon. It'll really keep that definition in that line that you draw on. So here's a great example. You see how you can still see that white part of my lip there? I want to bring that down so that it's connected, so it doesn't look like it's a separate lip. And I'll tell you, this technique of lip lining, it takes a little bit of practice to make it perfect, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. And that's with anything in makeup. So now I'm just perfecting everything. I'll say the one thing with the Silk pencils that I've noticed is building on top of it with the Silk pencil sometimes makes things a little patchy, so just be careful with that. All right, I'm gonna take a little makeup remover just to clean this right here, because that's looking like my lip is sagging. And I want to keep that nice and sharp. This is a fun little pro tip. So I'm just using my Cellar Water and the flat side of my etch brush to go ahead and clean off that lipstick. And you see how now it looks nice and sharp and pouty versus this side here where I didn't clean up. It wasn't as bad as that side, but you can kind of see the difference. How here it's kind of bringing that shadow down. So it's just kind of making the lips look more like, oh, derpy. While in reality, we want to keep this area here bright and clean. And that's gonna make it nice and juicy and plump and kind of give us a lip lift, if you will. See? All right, so I'm gonna go into the shade called Melon. So she's a little bit more of a corally color. And again, I did not fill this in to my lip line or to my actual lip. I just left it outside so you can see it's more of a defined lip. Now this is a pretty dark one. Cinnamon is dark. I don't recommend it for everybody, especially since it's that Silk formula. She's gonna stay dark. So it's gonna deepen your lip color, but it keeps that nice and defined line. So it definitely adds a lot more depth to your lip liner or to your lip color. So what this is great for, brown lip liners like this are really, really great for paler lip liner, or sorry, paler lip colors that just don't look good on you or kind of make you look washed out, or any lip color that makes you look washed out. Like Melon on its own, it's a little, if I like really built it up, it's a little bit too bright for me, especially since I'm a deep winter and I have like deeper like features. So I need something that has a little bit of depth so that it tones it down a little tiny bit and makes it darker so that it flatters me a lot better. So you want to keep those things in mind. Something like this on someone who has brighter and lighter features, like if you have blonde hair, blue eyes, light skin, this might be a little bit too intense for you. So this is where you'd want to use like a lighter brown lip liner, or even something maybe like a more corally red or something like that, that has a little bit more brightness, because it's gonna balance out your skin tone. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, I want to show you a great example of taking your lip color to the next level. So like transforming any lip color. So I brought out my lipstick in the shade called Faux. This is from MAC. This used to be my favorite lipstick when I used to work in beauty counters, MAC counters, all that stuff. She smells a little rancid. She's old. I'm not gonna lie, she's old, but this is just for demonstrative purposes, because I remember wearing this, and I think I used to wear it with lip liner. But on its own, it's not the most flattering on me. So let me really clean up my lips so that I don't have any extra color on there. It's just plain, because it'll change the lip color. Okay, my poor little lips. Okay, this is why I don't have face makeup on either. I mean, it's not the only reason why, but one of the reasons why I don't have face makeup on is because I knew how many times I would be cleaning up around my mouth. All right, so this is Pho. She's not terrible on her own, but you can see when I put her on, especially on my top lip, you see how pale and like distorted it makes my face look. It makes it look very, very washed out. It's doing absolutely nothing for me. Not a gosh darn thing. It's not good on its own. But this was one that I'm telling you, I used to wear on repeat, or I also used to wear Angel. Let me see if I can find it real quick. We're gonna do the demonstration with, okay, no. I think I ended up finishing Angel. But that was like one of my favorite lipsticks because Kim Kardashian wore it. So of course I needed to wear it too. So Pho, let's talk about her. She's similar to Coco Moreau. So she is a lot cooler. You can see that there's a lot of purple in there. It's not pulling warm at all. When I put it on my lips, it was not pulling warm. It was pulling very, very pale, very, very purple, and pulling the purple in my natural lip color. So if I went in with a cool lip liner, it will turn it more purple and darker, and it's not going to look as flattering. So I want something warmer. So I'm gonna go in with the shade, that's how I break my lip liners, Brownie. That's more of that neutral brown. And you're gonna put that on first. And like I said, as you start practicing, you'll be able to do something like that where you can like, you don't have to start with the center and then like connecting the dots. You'll be able to learn your lip line so that you can start here, go fuller here, and then tight there. It takes practice. Okay, now we're gonna go in with Pho again. This is the same lip color. And then really massage the two in. You see how that transformed it and turned it into something a lot more wearable. And then what I'll do is, like, if I'm starting to notice it's pulling a little bit light, especially my top lip, I have to be cautious of that. I'll just go back on top with a little more of the lip liner to reinforce that depth. And you see how much better that looks on my lips. Now I would go an extra step personally, and I would go in with a lip gloss, because you can never, or a lip oil. I like to use something with a little bit of color, and that's gonna melt everything together. I think Pho was a satin formula, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was a satin formula, so kind of similar to the satin lip and cheeks from Saint, and I'm gonna show you. But look how that just melted everything together, added some color back in there, and that's how we're able to create our own lip combos. So you want to kind of always remember, like, we're balancing. So if something's washing you out, how do you bring life back into your face? By adding color, by adding warmth back into the skin. If something is looking really, really pale and just making you look ashy and ghostly, you're going to probably add something with a little bit more depth that's more on the warmer side. Not too cool, because that's going to make it even cooler and make it look ashier. If it's looking too warm, then that's when you do want to use something cooler to kind of tone that down and not make it quite as orange. So I'm going to show you a couple of other lip combos with some of the Saint lip and cheeks that do not work for me, and how I like to add some depth. So remember, like, we're staying in the same color family. Always add warmth to cooler tones to kind of help neutralize it and kind of give some life back into your lip, and vice versa. When something's looking too warm on you, then you add a little bit of coolness to kind of help neutralize it and help tone that back down and make it look more flattering on you. So there's a couple of lip and cheeks from Saint that I would never get caught dead wearing on its own, and I always paired it with a lip liner. That's why I like brown lip liners, because they're the most versatile. But then you can transform things with different lip liner colors. So this is the shade called Ballerina. Very, very pale. It is a semi-gloss formula. I put this on, it literally looks like whiteout. That is just all kinds of wrong and terrible. But then when I go into something like brownie, that brownie is not too cool, has a little bit of warmth to it, just a little bit. Or I could even go in with, I'm gonna go in with toffee. I'm gonna actually do toffee because toffee is warmer. So you see how this is really, really cool and pale and ashy? So I'm gonna add some warmth to it and some depth back into it with toffee. And you see how that's kind of neutralizing it and adding some color. Now this is gonna be a little more subtle. It's not gonna be quite as defined because it's not that dark of a brown compared to brownie. But you see how that's looking a lot better now? And then that's when I can go in with something like, because for me, I need more depth because this is so pale. So I'm gonna go in with brownie just in the center to add a little bit more depth, especially this top lip. You see how it's starting to look a lot better? Now with this one, I'll actually bring in some of that depth a little bit down so that really the focal or the brightness, the lightest part is more in the center of my lip, more than it is on these outer corners here, because that's where things start to look a little too pale. So I can make that definitely work for me. And then I would slap on a lip oil or lip gloss or just something. Kind of helps to melt everything together. I find that gloss fixes everything and just makes everything work. Because look at how much better that looks than what it looked like a second ago, where it literally looked like Casper the Friendly Ghost. Now this is a lip combo that I would do. I would do paler lips like this or more nude lips with more dramatic makeup or more intense makeup, especially because naturally this is so much lighter than my natural lip color. So for a natural makeup look, if I were to like do the rest of my makeup and do like very minimal eyeshadow, very minimal face makeup, this is not enough depth for me. Which is why I talked about like when I wear more natural makeup, I always like to add a little bit more color to my lips because that looks a lot more balanced and cohesive with my skin tone. Versus if I made my eyes really dark and bold and intense, and I also did a bright lip color, like there's a lot happening there. So you want to create balance. So something like this, I would wear with a more bolder eye look. But then something like trying to figure out which one I want to use. Let's go in with this. This is pretty bold. This is Dahlia. So now with Dahlia, I could use a brown, but since this is pretty pink, I would prefer to use more of a berry lip color or lip liner. That doesn't look terrible on me, but there definitely is like, you can see some of the ashiness and coolness pulling through on my top lip. So I'm gonna go in with something like Mulberry. That's a little bit more berry, a little deeper, so that depth. It's gonna go better with my natural coloring because I have a lot of depth and contrast. And you see how much better Dahlia is looking? It's looking a lot more wearable. Dahlia reminds me a little bit of Candy Yum Yum from MAC. And of course, I always top it. I just find like it melts everything and looks so much better with a gloss or an oil or something on top. And that one is Dahlia with Mulberry and Sprinkles, which is a Loyalty Shop exclusive. All right, let's do one more. Because I want to show you Plum, which is another one of my favorites. So like if I use something like, I'm going to use this one instead. Hollywood. How long are we at? 45 minutes. I literally was like, this is going to be like 20 minutes. Psych. Hollywood. Hollywood has a little sparkle to her. Not the best on my lips. Love her as a cheek color. But how I can make it work, if I don't want to go with something too deep, I want to keep like the softness of that pink, but I add a little bit of depth. Plum is just a little bit lighter than Mulberry. Has a little bit of brown to it. So it helps add that depth, but it has that red that works really well with a pink. Because if I used a brown with a pink, it might start fooling a little bit more purpley or cool or ashy. And that's not really what we're going for. So that is just adding Plum lip liner. Do you see how much more wearable it just made Hollywood? And it didn't really change the effect of Hollywood. It can still give me that same vibe of what Hollywood Lip and Cheek gives, while still adding a little bit of depth around my lip. And then it can go in with something like Birthday Cake lip oil. It kind of has a little iridescence because this isn't going to really change the color. It's just going to kind of change the finish a little tiny bit and add some hydration. But look at how pretty that looks. A lot more wearable, a lot more subtle. I didn't go too deep with the lip liner because this color isn't too deep. And if I did go really deep, it's going to change completely the lip color and I'm going to get a totally different vibe, which isn't bad. But if you're trying to keep the like vibe of what Hollywood is, kind of like that softer medium pink, then you want to keep the lips more softer, or the lip liner more softer. So hopefully that makes sense. So I go based off of like undertones. So I know if something's more pinkier, or even red, I'm most likely going to use more of a pinkier or berry lip liner shade. If something's more cooler, I'll probably use like a warmer brown. Paler, I'm probably gonna use like a warmer brown. If it's warmer, I'm gonna probably use a cooler brown. And I try to usually like go like within undertones. I'm gonna do just one more example. I know I just said that earlier, but I wanted to just show you this one. So this is another really great example. So I'm using an orange. So I could go in with a brown, but that's gonna kind of mute things down and make it more pale. If I wanna keep the warmth of that orange, I'm gonna go in with something like Toasted, and I can even mix Toasted with Brownie. So I'm gonna start with Toasted first. Oh crap, I should probably show you. So this is Tropicana. Let me show you Tropicana on the lips. She's a coral, Styling Gloss. Not terrible. But when I add that more red, I wouldn't go in with a berry. I would go in with like a red or a brown. That helps to add that, or helps to define the lips while still keeping that pretty warmth. Well, on top lip here, you're gonna see it pulls really warm, or really orange. So to tone that down, I can either go in with Pepper, and that'll keep it the same like depth and intensity, but just cool it down. Or I can go in with a Brownie, that'll help to add a little more depth, a little darker, while still toning that down. You see how I made that a lot more wearable. The same thing on the bottom. So that's Tropicana with Toasted and a little bit of Brownie. So I wanted to define that a little bit more. If I didn't want it quite as defined, I would have gone in with Pepper, and that would have kept it more softer. So those are just a couple different ways that you can play around with the different new lip colors. And you can do this with any other lip color too. Like if you already have something at home, you can definitely do these things, to try these tips and tricks. But let me know if this was helpful. If you have any questions, I definitely would love to answer them. But I just want to encourage you to really have fun with it, play around with it. And at the end of the day, makeup always comes off, as you can see. So sometimes I even like will do a lip combo that I think is gonna work with like my eyeshadow or whatever the case may be, and I put it on and I'm like, ooh, no, I don't like how that pairs together. And then I'll just like switch it out. So it definitely comes from like practice, playing around. Again, safe bet is always staying within the same color families. That is always like the safest way for you to know that things are gonna work. And then as you start getting more comfortable, then you can kind of risk it a little bit more. I'll hit on some of the Saint Lip Balm. It's a little thicker, more hydrating. Oh, it instantly hydrates my lips. Oh God. And they feel so dry. So anyways, let me know if you have any questions, if you need help with lip combos, lip color suggestions, whatever the case may be. I'm always glad to help. And even if you have lighter skin tone, don't be scared of the darker lip liners. You can definitely make them work. You can soften them up. You can pair them with lighter lip colors to kind of create your own custom color. And the satins are really great formulas for beginners to just kind of have something that's more easier and that's not quite as intense. I will tell you right now, I absolutely do not recommend anybody to get this shade here called Caramel as a lip liner because it is so pale. Maybe someone who's like really warm toned and very pale, maybe, but that's it. Anyone else beyond that, I know you're terrified of lip liner, but go a little bit deeper. You need a little bit of depth to your lips because most people naturally, most people, not everybody, but most people, they usually do have a little bit more depth in their lips. Their lips are a little bit darker than their face. And as we get older, we tend to lose some of that color. Some people, I have met a lot of people that they have no coloring to their lips, or it's like very, like it is actually a little bit darker than their face, but it's like a purple type of color. So always remember that you want to go a little bit darker than what you probably think. Because I get it. It's like you're just scared of the darker colors, but don't be scared of them. You can always blend things out and you can always mix and match to make your own custom shades. So hopefully this was helpful. I'm gonna go do some other stuff that I have to do today. And stay tuned. Probably next week I will send out an invitation for this month's masterclass. We're going to be doing color correcting 101, something that I get a lot of questions about all the time. So I figured that this is a great time to really go over color correction and do's and don'ts and how to just like, how to use them like a pro and create a more flawless complexion. All right, I love you all so much. Thank you for watching. Catch you later.